How's it going, everybody? Welcome. I'm Kris Keefer, and we are at Glen Helen Raceway, and you are into another 2022 first test right here on RacerXOnline.com. You're looking at the 2022 KX450, and guess what? We're going to be out here at Glen Helen all day testing it. Got a couple different riders. I brought my buddy Gary Sutherlin. He is, or was, AMA National Hare and Hound Champion and Works Champion, but he has a lot of time on a Kawasaki. We put him on the KX450X in 2021, so he is a perfect candidate to try and ride this moto version of Kawasaki's 450. So stay tuned. We'll give you some opinions and some things that we like to do to this bike since there is no changes in 2022. So in order to make this video interesting and for you guys that want to watch it, we're going to give you some mods and some things that we do to our KX from last year that make it a little bit more friendlier ride and as well a little bit more pep in its step. So stay tuned. All right, guys, we just spent about 4.5 hours on the 2022 KX450. I was about to say all new, but that's not the case here. So Kawasaki did 0.0 changes to the 2022, but that doesn't mean we're not going to have a video for you and get you some information and just a little refresher course on what this bike is about. So for the refresher course, I brought my buddy here, Gary Sutherlin. What year were the championships again? Let's relive that real fast. What year were the championships?
We're just living in the past, 17.
2017 was a great year for Gary. Yes, maximum money, maximum fun, and then all right, so Gary's 200 pounds, still has a lot of skill in him, as you can see in the video. So for me, I'll break it down the engine. If you guys are worried about a 450 engine being too much power, this thing is, for me, is like the KTM 450 a little bit off the bottom. It's really linear and long feeling. There is a little bit of a hit. Me and Gary were talking about this earlier, from 0 to 10% throttle. It's a little bit jumpy. So we'll talk about the coupler system in a minute, but we changed the couplers to help us out in when we have these shallow ruts and we're getting in these shallow ruts, we want to roll the throttle on really smooth. So that helped that. But overall, it's a very pleasant engine to ride. There's not a huge hit. It's long, linear power, has a lot of rear-wheel traction, and it's just a nice, forgiving engine. So if you're not in shape, I'm not in shape right now. I'm coming off an injury. Gary's just starting to ride again. He's not in shape, but easy-to-ride engine. So, Gary, what do you think about this engine?
I've had a lot of fun. I've done a little bit of testing with the 21, the X model, and that's honestly the first thing. Super linear, super easy to ride, user-friendly. I enjoy it, whether it's first thing in the morning. I wish it did have a little excitement. Like this morning, it was deep and like coming into corners when you want to really get that excitement and get out of a rut. Being a little bigger than I am, it definitely didn't have that excitement. But now that the track's gotten a lot, rougher, I definitely feel like the motor now works a lot better.
So yeah, so you guys are out there, you're a vet guy, and you're not worried about, I don't think I need 450 cc's of power. This is not at the top tier of the engine category as far as sheer maximum horsepower for 2022, but it's very usable, easy to ride. So I do like that. Now, chassis-wise, I would say for the longest time, I've been in manufactured in R&D testing for a long time, and the Kawasaki set the benchmark for frame absorption, chassis feel. A lot of other manufacturers mimicked or tried to mimic their feel after the KX450. So it has changed a little bit in the past couple of years. They're trying to get a little bit better cornering stability, what we call it, when you're in the corner and you want it to stick. They want it to turn a little sharper. It's not so rear wheel biased. It's more neutral now. Gary's a rear steering guy. I'm more of a front. So we dropped our fork flush and still had a lot of front end traction for this chassis. But here at Glen Helen, high speed, man, bump absorption is really good. I can go fast and not feel sketchy. On other bikes, let's say a red bike, it's a little bit twitchy at times. This bike feels planted. I guess you rode off-road. You go fast. I don't. So how do you feel about this frame?
I like the frame. I do like the progressiveness of the suspension. It is plush. I do struggle a little bit with a little bit of front wheel traction in areas, especially here at Glen Helen. Once we lowered the sag a little bit and then I softened the fork up today, it definitely, like, the bike felt like it stuck to the ground a lot better. And overall, I mean, now that the track's getting rough, going out and feeling the difference from this morning, it's definitely, I've always been a fan of the Cowie, and it still has that rear wheel steer for me that I like, but I also can admire it when I want to come into a rut and really, you know, get into something like that. I think it's good.
So I rode another colored bike today just to kind of compare, and although the engine's a little bit different, but just for you guys out there so you know, I rode a KTM today here at the track, and the stability difference is quite apparent. Like, for me, straight line stability going up Talladega, fast, choppy stuff, this frame absorbs a lot of that. The KTM frame doesn't as much. So for me, I get a little bit what I call tire contact patch, a little bit more of that with this colored bike versus the orange bike. So I do find that very friendly on fast, sweeping tracks. Now, when we get to a tighter track, later on we'll ride this thing at a later date on tight, ruddy tracks. I would prefer a KTM for its cornering ability. But for me, for comfort, going fast, angling, lean angle of my tires, I like this frame. We always talk about, hey, let's put a 5.1 fork spring, I'm sorry, a 5.2 in this fork to make it a 5.1 overall, just to bring it up a little bit. I went +2, which is 2 stiffer on the fork today. I like that. Gary didn't, which was surprising. But for me, I just want a little bit more hold up, so that does help when you guys get a bike. Go +2, I'm 170, Gary's 200 pounds, +2 on the fork helped. He wanted to speed up his rebound a little bit, just kind of soak up some of that chop, get more front end feel. And the shock, we went back and forth in the sag a little bit. So Gary can explain that, but I was at 104, 105. He was at 103, and then we kind of switched roles a little bit. He rode with my sag, and you said it wasn't bad.
Yeah, I definitely, I started with 102, 103, and I liked it. I like clearly in the morning, I like being able to pick into the ruts, diving in, and it actually had good traction. Now that the track got a little like baked out and it wasn't as good, we went, I think I was like 108, and it definitely, like, the bike for me got more stable, like on that high speed coming into Talladega. It felt better. I did notice a little, like, feeling it get deeper in the stroke, like, now that it's gotten rougher. But it was, for me, I'd probably sit around 106 to 108. Like, I like that feel, and I was able to steer with the rear more for me at that lower squatted feel, for sure.
Yeah, we left the fork flush today. Again, Glen Helen, high speed, coming down hills to try to hold that front end up coming down hills. So I do like that part. You can adjust that on tighter tracks. I even go to +3, so go to 3 mil. And then you can, if you want, drop your sag a little bit, and that'll kind of help balance this chassis out. Again, overall, no changes from 21 to 22. So you can go to keeferinctesting.com later, and I'll put up some specs for you guys. But for me, some mods, and Gary's been on one of these here lately too, little things do help. So I've tried some different suspension settings. That actually helps the balance of the bike. It helps the bike corner. I've tried different mufflers, FMF, Pro Circuit. Does help a little bit, but people talk trash on this bazooka that is this muffler. But it's actually a really good muffler.
Yeah, I've actually just been riding with the stock muffler. Honestly, I haven't got to play around with any other slip-ons or anything. I've been actually pretty happy with it. Like, I haven't really...
It's not the best-looking muffler, but it actually works.
Yeah, hey, that's all that really matters, right?
Handlebars, I am not a huge Renthal fat bar guy, but I do like the bend. The bend is a lot nicer. Hydraulic clutch, I like this hydraulic clutch on this bike. The window, for me, I have problems with the KTM Brembo. The window's pretty narrow on the hydraulic clutch. This thing's a little bit longer, a little bit more linear. I like that. It's less on-off feeling. I don't like the lever shape. I think you can agree with that.
Yeah, that's the first thing on the 2021 that I have. Like, literally, I rode one day, and I can't stand. I know people like that thin pencil feel, and I struggle with it. Actually, for some reason, I get arm pump like
Are you a hydraulic or a cable guy?
I like the hydraulic, and I actually played around with some arc levers and stuff, and some different actuating, and I like other levers, and I like the hydraulic clutch with it too. It's especially
You're a clutchy guy.
clutch guy and brake.
Rear brakes and clutch. That's you.
Hey, this thing's been holding up. I've been pretty impressed.
So let's talk about the coupler system here. So went over it with Mike Chavez. If you guys know Mike, he's a representative from Kawasaki. He was Damon Bradshaw's mechanic back in the day. Really good dude. So what we call the Chaw map, he maps this coupler. We put it in. So Gary and I, like we said earlier, from 0 to 10% throttle was a little bit on-off, jerky feeling when we're rolling our corners. So this map, which you can find up on my website, is you plug that in. You're going to have to get a KX calibration tool. And don't forget, when you get that calibration tool, there is a sub-harness that you have to buy with it. So just know that. But when you do that, you map it, put that Chaw map in. Gives you a little bit, I want to say less power in that 0 to 10 zone. But after that, man, it picks up nice, has good recovery. Yeah, explain that more.
So we rode 2 Chavez maps today, and the first one, like for me, it helped. Definitely coming into ruts. I was struggling early in the day. Like you'll see hopefully some bloopers. I was I wasn't able to get in and like roll it on. It was just like hitting, and it would like hit, and then it would get linear. So with the Chavez map, I definitely felt like I could roll through my ruts better, but it had the excitement I was looking for that I didn't have in the stock map. So it kind of band-aided where it was bad and helped where
You just kind of filled in the gaps, I guess you could say. Like. Help that chassis. When we talk about cornering stability, is when that bike gets in that rut, how even is your chassis inside that rut? You don't want to be rolling on your throttle and have that thing squat in the rear, and then when you get off, have it dive in the front. You want it to have a nice flat feel, and this map helps that situation and gives you more torque feeling in that mid-range where Gary was talking about, more meat. So that is a good map. We also tried what we call Chavez Smooth, but we were trying to say, let's try some different maps. That map, Gary liked, I didn't. I felt like it was a little bit too doggy, a little bit too lethargic down low, and I had to ride it really high, like rev it out like a 250. So Gary rode later in the day than I did. Track was watered, jacked up, and you said you actually would use that map.
Yeah, I actually liked it. Like as much as I wanted that excitement earlier in the day when it was deep and everything, like clearly Glen Helen in the afternoon, 3 o'clock, whatever, it's super slick, and then of course water. I liked it. I felt like once I got on the throttle, like I could be aggressive with it and it was still getting traction. Like I could ride it aggressive and I wasn't like spinning, I wasn't missing my lines, I wasn't getting
more real connection for you.
Yeah, but the whole bike just felt more planted. Like you could get on the gas and it was tracking up the hills, out of the corners, everywhere actually.
So yeah, it's not a Yamaha Power Tuner app where it's, you got it on your phone, but to me, if you have the calibration tool, which obviously costs extra, unlike a Yamaha where you get that along with the bike, right? It's a nice feature. It's pretty easy to use. You can put that map into any color coupler. So if you want to put the Chaw map into a black coupler, you can put that in there and run it. You can have a couple different couplers on hand. So just like say me and Gary are riding and we're sharing this bike, I can put the Chaw map in. He can put the Chaw Smooth map, just unplug, plug in, pretty basic. So overall, people say, oh, I don't have an app. Well, we don't have an app, and it's not as easy, but it's not that hard. You just got to know when you do buy a calibration tool, it goes back, what we found out today, goes back 2009 on a KX450. You have that tool. If you have an older KX, you can actually tune your ECU going back to 2009. KX250, you can go back to 2011. So it does span the time for almost over 10 years. Yeah, over 10 years. Yeah, so there is some advantage to having that. So overall, this bike is a very solid bike. I'll be real with you guys. It's not my favorite bike to ride, but every time I ride this thing, and I've said this 2 or 3 years in a row, it's a good bike. Like if I was riding SRA GPs, I'm out here at Glen Helen, I want just an easy bike to ride. The KX is a great bike. You spend a lot of time in the Cowie, and you even told me before, I wish I had a Cowie sometimes.
Yeah.
On your other bikes.
Yeah, it's kind of like hit or miss. Like there's areas where I'm like, it just works good kind of everywhere. It's not like I don't take it somewhere and go, oh man, it's just the best, and then I go somewhere else and I'm like, it's not so good. Like it's good. Like you can, and I feel like it's pretty easy to make it user friendly. You're coming off a KTM or a Honda or whatever you're coming off of. Like it's pretty easy to just throw a set of bars or what you like and make you feel comfortable, and the bike, the rest of it's already there.
Adjustability too, we didn't mention that. We didn't really screw with that today. So adjustability, you got a lot of positions up here on the bar mount. We can drop the pegs. That's a nice feature. I wish a lot of other manufacturers have that feature in the foot pegs, because there's some cockpits that aren't so friendly out there. The Kawasaki, to me, is similar to a Honda feel. I get on it, and I feel at home right away. I don't have to mess with the peg. Gary's going to do that with the X, so if you guys want to see that later, we're going to do a video on that. But we can drop that peg 5 mil, and that'll be a little bit of a different. I'm 6 foot, you're
5'9".
5'9", so there is some adjustability here, which is nice to have because we're not all built the same. So overall, great bike. We're going to ride this thing a little bit more, and yes, I think we're going to have shootouts this year. You guys have been talking about it. I skipped it last year. We're going to try something a little bit different with shootouts this year, so stay tuned for that. And get some more information, of course, at racerxonline.com. Subscribe, Gary. Do you subscribe to RacerX? No, he does not, but he should, because if he did, he would get a free pair of Ethica underwear right now. And he could use those, right? Because who wouldn't want a free pair of Ethica underwear? $30, 12 issues, things that you can read that you can't read on the digital side of things. So there's a benefit to getting print magazines. It's always fun to have around the house, and that is still available. So check us back. We'll be back again, I'm sure, next week with another video. 2022s are rolling out, racerxonline.com. Any questions? As always, Kris at keeferinctesting.com. I'm happy to help. We'll see you on the next go-around.